Hi, and welcome to Hypothetically Intentional, where we ask the question, what if we set intentions with everything we do? My name is Michelle Albers, and today I have Jeanette Wilson with me. Welcome, Jeanette.
Oh, it's lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Michelle.
I'm so grateful that you're here, and you're from Australia, is that true?
New Zealand.
Oh, New Zealand, sorry.
Yeah, across the water, across
Across
the
the
ditch, as we
water.
say. Yeah, we don't have snakes or spiders. I work in mostly in the UK. I'm originally from the UK and New Zealand, and I'm just doing my first event in Australia next month.
Ah, beautiful. Okay. So before we drop in and dive into all the questions that I'm sure will come in just a beautiful conversation, I am going to invite you to set an intention.
Awesome. Setting intentions works well for Oprah, so it should work well for the rest of us. So, our intention is that this communication reaches the people it needs to reach, that it lands on them in such a way that it inspires them, maybe causes them to release something they need to release, or gives them clarity about the way forward for them. And we intend that the conversation is guided by the divine, by spirit, so that it flows the course it needs to flow to impact people in the most significant way.
Hmm, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have a conversation with you because you used several keywords that for me ping interest, but also there's like a warmth in my heart that happens because it feels to me already, and we've barely said a few sentences to each other, that you are really passionate about guiding others through healing, however that looks.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I started my journey as a bank manager, so I wasn't very spiritual. I wasn't very open-minded. I was very methodical and analytical, and then spirit visited me. Started with a communication from my grandfather, then my grandmother, and then I found I could work as a medium. And then later on in the journey, I found that I'm actually here as a healer, and that's what most of my work is doing now, doing psychic surgery and witnessing incredible results.
That's amazing. I have several questions within that. First, so you had never had spirit come visit you before, and
No,
and all of a sudden, just your grandmother came
uh,
in?
31. I was 31. I got 2 degrees. I was working as I was the training manager for the north of England for Lloyds Bank, which is a very traditional bank. And out of the blue, I was at Regent's College. I was doing a workshop in NLP, and I think partly it was the energy of Regent's Park, Regent's College, partly it was the NLP, neuro linguistic programming, where you're putting yourself through an experience of examining your beliefs and tapping into your potential. And on one of the exercises where we were supposed to be connecting to the parts, the parts of the psyche, I found my granddad was inside of me, which is quite unlike anything you ever see in any movies. You often get the image of spirits being out there, but he was inside of me. He was about the size of a walnut, a shriveled up walnut, and he was despairing because he'd made a dreadful, dreadful mistake. And unbeknownst to me, what had happened is when Grandad died, he died of lung cancer, and I was 6 at the time. My father made a heartfelt request to his dad, my grandfather, to say, "Please look after Jeanette." And so my granddad didn't move through to spirit world, he stayed with me. So I had my grandfather with me from the age of 6 to 31, 25 years, and I never knew. I thought the voices in my head were all me.
Uh,
Remember at the age of, it was either 6 or 7, I was at my mum's dressing table, one of those dressing tables with the wing mirrors where you can line them up and see lots of mini me's. And I was faffing around with this mirror, and my own thought was, I wonder if other people have voices in their head. And a male voice on my left said, well, if they don't, they're going to think you very strange. And if they do, they're going to think you very dumb, only asking about it now that you're 6, 7. And so I didn't have the quality of consciousness then to think, hey, the voice in my head doesn't know the answer to that. And that turns out that was my granddad. But I didn't know that then. It took me until I was 31 for him to move on out of my space. So grandma didn't die until I was 13. I was very, very close to my grandma. So it was very painful losing her. She got through to spirit world fully expecting to be with granddad, and he wasn't there. He was earthbound with me. And so she had to wait another 18 years People don't
Wow.
think about this. You know, you think you're going over to meet your loved one, but if they're earthbound, no, you don't, because they're earthbound. She had to wait 18 years to get him through to be with her spirit world.
That's
But
incredible.
it meant that I'd had 25 years of life, or 30, yeah, 25 years of life, able to have a spirit with me and not go crazy, not end up on a psych ward. And so I think spirit then saw, oh, this is a great opportunity. Now granddad's gone, now we can actually use her. And the first thing that happened was I allowed myself to be used by spirit. And I was very, very successful, hugely successful. I got 4 books published, I got a TV series going great guns, I was making loads of money. And then I went over to Brazil. I went over to see John of God in Brazil. And while I was staying in one of the little guest houses there, they're called pousadas, a male spirit came into me and said to me very sternly, "You have no discernment." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he said to me, "If a stranger knocked on your door in the dead of night and said, 'Come with us,' would you go with the stranger?" Well, at the time, my kids were 6 and 4, so the answer to that is a firm no, I wouldn't. If a stranger knocks on my door, I've got 2 kids in the house with me, I'm not going to go off on some wild errand with a stranger. He said, "But that's what you've been doing for spirit." And he impressed upon me that I must only work for those spirits that were aligned with the will of God.
Mm.
And I knew he was absolutely speaking the truth. And now, retrospectively, I believe that that spirit was St. Ignatius of Loyola. That, and it's very rare to see him. So I realised, but I knew the severity. It was like a scolding, but it was for my own good. And so then I turned down a deal that would have made me $1 billion in 6 months, and that was making syndicated TV mediumship in the US. I turned it down. I sat in the lawyer's office. Not one part of me wanted to take it because I knew my absolute truth is I'm here as a healer. I've got 2 missions. One is to transform medicine, and the transformation of medicine is already underway. People are turning away from conventional medicine and they're turning towards natural remedies and healing in numbers like we probably haven't ever seen before. People are realizing that what we've got is a pharmaceutical drug industry. It's not about health at all. If it was about health, they'd be teaching us about diet, nutrition, relaxing, de-stressing. That's not what's happening. And so people are really waking up to that. And my role is it's quite unique, but my role is to show what is possible with healing. And so at my live events, people get results in front of their eyes: bad backs, bad hips, bad shoulders. The most extreme thing was witnessed was a young man. He's called Connor. He'd fallen 2 stories out of a window, and a good friend of his brought him to my event, praying that he could walk again. And in 30 minutes, he was walking. And clearly,
Wow.
that's not me. That is the higher power. But it's because I've turned away from the mediumship. I'm not saying mediumship is bad. I still work as a medium, but I was doing what spirit wanted me to do, and I needed to be in alignment with God. And I don't belong to any particular religion or in particular church. I think of God as like an intelligent love that is invisible and present everywhere and orchestrates everything. And God is within us and around us. And these bodies can heal themselves. That's what I'm here to show. If we give them the right environment, these bodies can heal themselves.
So when you mentioned you said psychic surgery, right?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that blended with mediumship or
right.
how because I mean I have a psychic surgery definition, but I'm curious of what does that look like for you? It sounds like deep, powerful healing and I imagine guided by God.
Yes, absolutely. So psychic surgery traditionally is a lot of that is being done in like South America and the Philippines, where um, the person goes into trance
Mm.
and the spirit surgeon comes through and literally performs surgery with knives. So John of God was probably the best known person working like that on the planet. The second best one is probably Stephen Turoff in the UK, who's still alive, and John of God is still alive as well. Now, that's not what I do. I don't use any kind of implements or instruments. They work with me using like sound and light. And so I tend to call it spirit surgery. And they release energies, they find what energies are blocked. Um, but they also give me great insight. So being a medium is really, really useful because I can understand, I can see clairvoyantly what they're doing, I can hear clairaudiently. I've got some knowledge, I've worked as a healer now for over 30 years, so I've got knowledge of physiology, anatomy, the nervous system, the immune system. I've got quite a lot of um, biological knowledge, if you like, but their knowledge is way, way beyond ours. I work with invisible beings that are capable of fixing the human body. They know how to do it, but they don't try and fix. They bring it. They hold me in their consciousness, and then this amazing energy comes through, which we capture on film. And sometimes we get, phenomena on camera as well. Like balls of light, orbs. You've got to be careful with orbs though, because dust, water vapor, lots of different things, pollen can photograph as orbs. But when you get something like, I've got one photograph where there's light coming out of the top of my head. Well, how does that happen? So we get some very interesting phenomena as well. And my job isn't to say, look at me, look what I can do. It's to say, come on, if you're a healer, if you want to get results like this, come along to one of my events, come and spend time with me, watch my videos, get your skill level up to this level. Let's show everybody that what is possible with healing.
So your events, are they meant to teach other people how to be healers, or are they meant to live in real time do healing services and practices in the room, or is it
I
both?
do both. I do
Okay.
evening events called Healing Breakthroughs, where the audience comes along and the spirit doctor works on people in the audience, sometimes out the front, sometimes while they're sat in the audience. And then I do 2-day workshops where people come along, usually existing healers that see my videos and think, well, I want to do that. Who doesn't? And so I create an environment, and usually I choose the environment very, very carefully. There was a time where I was doing my events in different hotels, especially up and down the UK. And then there was the experience where I went to a place, I went to Lourdes and I felt the energy of Lourdes. I've been to Brazil, I felt the energy of where John of God works, amazing, amazing places. And then I went to the Harriet Edwards Foundation, which is in a little village called Sheer near Guildford in the UK, and that felt like Brazil. And it was like, okay, this is where I need to run my workshops now. Because if you're in the right environment, that veil between our dimension and the spiritual one is so much thinner.
So when that's so amazing. And your workshops, I imagine I'm just sitting here thinking about like, and it's different all around the world, right? As
Mhm.
far as like people's varied openness or not so openness. But I'm
Mm,
wondering, like your workshops, I would imagine that the people who come there, like they've seen you first and they're very
yes,
much open and quote unquote ready. I don't know that I love that term, but like they're choosing to be there. They're choosing to be in this
yes,
space where they know that it's like the thing they've been waiting for, so to speak. I guess
yeah,
that's kind of how I
absolutely.
see it.
Yeah, it's almost like a pilgrimage for some people coming to my events because, I work so many months in the UK and so many months in New Zealand, and they see me and then they're waiting for me to come to their country. And then they make the journey to the Harry Edwards Centre or to where I am. I'm near Auckland in New Zealand. And I used to do lots of travelling. I used to travel all over, live out of a suitcase. But increasingly, I've realised no, I need to be in a space where the energy is already really, really good.
That's something that I find a lot that I don't know that, well, I definitely started paying attention to it when I started doing more energy work.
Yeah,
When I started doing energy work, I found myself being really particular about spaces. Either I was called to a space and that was it, or I energetically prepared the space.
yeah.
Do you do that a lot?
Yes, and it's so wonderful when you approach the driveway of a place and you can feel the energies you come up the drive, and then you're driving probably for about a kilometre, getting to the centre of it, then you get into the building, and then you actually walk through, and then you walk into the sanctuary and just want to cry, and that
Isn't
for
that
me is like,
fascinating?
yeah. But that centre, you see, that's been there for quite a few years. Harry Edwards was England's most famous healer, and he died 49 years ago, and it's 7/7s, and
Oh,
now
wow.
I'm going in to continue the work.
That's amazing. So
And
it
there's
sounds like
others
you
working there. It's not just me. I don't want to sound very
fair.
conceited
No,
there. Yeah.
I get that. It's like even the word like healer, it's like yes, I'm a catalyst for healing and and I it's not me. You
It's a
know, it's like
misnomer, isn't it? We're not healers because it's a misnomer. It's because we're not the ones doing the healing. We're the instruments, aren't we? Or the
yeah.
channels, the
Yeah, and I'm not
conduits.
poo-pooing the word healer. It's just an interesting, like I'm hearing what you're saying. Your point is it's like it's not of you.
No,
You're,
it's not.
it's you're part of it, but it's not yours. I feel like all of our healing is unique to us and we are the ones doing it, but then we get that beautiful support. And it's super helpful when we have someone in the room who can be the whole space holder for spirit and that connection.
That's the thing. My last UK tour, I had somebody email me to say he'd been sat in a development circle for 4 years attuning, and he wanted to know how many years I had to sit in a development circle to do what I do. And it's like, well, I haven't sat in a development circle ever. I just was able to do it from day one. Um, and
Yeah.
so, if you can get yourself around people that are ahead of where you are spiritually, not better than you. Nobody's better than anybody else. We've all got different challenges in life. But I've spent time with John O'God in Brazil. I've spent time with Stephen Turoff in the UK. I've been to Lourdes, a sacred site. I'm spending time at the Harry Edwards Foundation. I've visited other sacred sites around the world, Uluru in Australia, the Standing Circles in the UK. If you can get yourself around people or in places where the energy is different, then you accelerate your own journey. And I consider I can save healers years. If they spend some time with me, if they get to meet the team I work with, the team I work with are extensive. There's over 1,300 spirits in the team.
That's what I was going to
So
ask you. I'm glad you
so come
clarified
and
that. I'm
come
like, are you
come on
talking
one of
about
my
your human team?
workshops. Find the team, and the spirit doctors that work through me can work through anybody. You know, when we think about these spirit doctors, one of the main ones that works through me is Dr. Augusto de Almeida. Almeida is a place in Spain. Now, I'm only working so many hours of the day. Sometimes in the healing, he'll just pop in for a minute, 2 minutes. He won't necessarily be there for the whole 10 minutes. It's quite unusual if he is. And then he's off doing other things. He's being of service in the highest possible way. And so he needs more people to work through, as does Dr. Oswaldo Cruz, as does Jose Penteado, all these other different doctors. They're waiting for us to realize that we can do this. But when it happens, your tricky thing is mastering the ego, understanding the nature of the ego. Because if the ego comes in, all healing stops.
Yeah.
You've got to get yourself out of the way. Well, you'll know as a healer yourself. You've just got to get yourself out of the way and let that energy that the client requires come through.
Did that, oh, what's the question? Did that challenge you at times? I mean, because if you've had this gift, well, I was gonna say your whole life, and I suppose that's true on some level, but you didn't really know much about it until you were in your 30s.
Yeah.
But once you discovered and uncovered like that, your gifts, did you find a struggle? Like, did you ever doubt it, or was it just like it had been so part of your
I,
life
I
that it
can
wasn't
honestly,
even,
I can honestly say from day one, I never doubted anything, but I had
yeah.
fears. I had fears for my mental health, especially with the mediumship side of things. And I had to learn and understand about the dark side of things. That's not where I want to work. Some people do work in that area and do amazing work there, but that's not my thing.
Yeah.
Um, I clear my own space, my own home, the work environment, but I'm not looking to go clearing anybody's houses. So don't ask me to do that. And don't ask me to find things. That's not my. I'm here as a healer. I'm here to show what is possible with healing. So I never doubted it. Um, but I also was an advantage because I'd studied NLP, neuro linguistic programming. I really started to observe the functioning of the mind. I'd spent 3 or 4 years trying to work out which of the voices in my head were me after
Mm.
realizing, well, if that was my granddad, who else is in here? And it's quite shocking, but I would say about 1 in 3 people have got spirits with them and they don't realize. Every time, if somebody's got a thought in your head, it's been a hard day, you deserve a drink. Or it's been a wonderful day, you deserve a drink. Or it's been a hard day, you deserve a cigarette. Or it's been an amazing day, you deserve some chocolate. We've really got to question if that's us, because I don't reckon it is. 9 times out of 10, it's the spirit that can't have cigarettes, alcohol, sex, chocolate anymore because they're earthbound. And the only way they can get that taste and that feeling is to hop into your body and convince you to sit in front of the TV and eat another packet of chocolate biscuits.
Oh, wow.
You know,
I've
there's a
never
whole
thought of it
side
from
of
that
this that helps with
perspective, but
weight
that's
loss. Yeah,
yeah. I've never thought of it from that very specific perspective, but I hear you. And that's really fascinating. When you first started talking about it, I was thinking about claircognizance. It's like because that's one of my main clairs. And when it first
mm,
happened, I was so confused because I was like, well, wait, I wasn't thinking about that at all. And this just kind of jumped in and like, where did that come from? And once I
yeah,
figured it out, it's like, to work with that in a way that is you really do have to get your ego out of the way because you have to be able to
yeah,
discern. And if you're trying to discern through ego, good luck. It's so hard.
yeah.
Well, you can't. And so
Claircognizance is the best one to have. It's the most powerful. It's the one that I would trust over all the others. So that's brilliant. You have that.
once you learn how to do it, or once you
Yeah.
understand which I say voice, it's not even voice, it's a knowing, but it's like it just took me a while to figure that out, and then I feel like it's the trickiest one, even though it's the one that's most me to explain to students. Because it's like, well, you got to figure out the thoughts in your head, and then you got to figure out the light in your head. It's both. So
Yeah.
I love what you're speaking of and how you're talking about it and what you're here for, because that's what this feels like. It's like this is what you're here for. And
Mm,
it's fascinating to me people's journeys of like how it came to be for them, right? And so
mm,
I just think it's amazing. I can't imagine. I mean, I resisted this world when it started opening for me because I didn't grow up with any of that. It was very rigid and boxed and defined for me and labeled, and I just tucked into that for a really long time. And then when I started opening and realizing and understanding, why I'm here, it got interesting for a little while, for a while. And there was a lot of doubt and there was a lot of fear and there was a lot of just confusion, I suppose. Um, but I'm curious about, okay, so your events, I'm circling back to you because I'm very curious about the TV show. Can you say more about that?
yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it,
So,
yeah, tell me about it.
yeah. So let me tell you the story of the TV show because it is fascinating. All right. So what happened was at my mediumship shows, um, so before I was told you have no discernment, I was doing mediumship shows. And at the mediumship shows, the audience always had so many questions. And if I answered their questions, it left time for messages. So I knew I needed to put all the answers in a book. So I wrote a book. And the day that the book was written, it was old style, double spaced manuscript, just paper. It was sat on my hard drive of my computer, just sat as a sheath of papers and I'd finished it. And the only person in the world that knew my book had been finished was my mum in the UK. I'd told her on the phone call that I'd finished my book. And at 9 o'clock on the dot that morning, my phone went and it was a publisher asking if I'd like a book published. And I was like, how do you know? This must be, this is a weird synchronicity. So anyway, I know I've got several books to write, 6 or 7 books. I've written 4 so far. Well, 5 or 6 really so far, and I've got even more coming down the line. 4 have been published, others are in different stages of printing. I go into the meeting, and the first thing they say to me, they explain that they're looking for somebody in the mind, body, spirit genre, and they're wanting them to write several books because it's a lot more lucrative to the publisher if you're not just going to write one. They do all the rah rah rah, and then you've got an audience they can sell books. So deal was done. Now, how I got the TV series was um, one day Spirit said to me, um, "You need to learn to do what you do, not with a live audience, but on the phone. So just with the person's voice, not seeing the person." And so what I did was I listened to that. That was the claircognizance that I just knew I had to do this. I went to the local polytechnic where they had a film unit, and I invited a local professional interviewer from the radio to come and interview me, and the students filmed me, and the interviewer's role was to give me hardball questions like, he was saying things like, you're just preying on people that are mourning and grieving. You're doing the work of the devil and all this kind of thing, to see how I would react emotionally, physiologically. Could I still then, stay connected to spirit when faced with adversity, and negativity? So 10 till 12 o'clock was my session at the Polytechnic here in the town I was in then, which was New Plymouth. At 9 a.m. that morning, my publishers ring me to say, Get your makeup on, get your best clothes on. TV3 are coming to interview you. They'll be with you at 1 o'clock. And I'm like, thank you, Spirit. I've just got my rehearsal in a safe environment that I'm in control of. I've got an hour for me lunch, and then I'm facing TV3. Now, TV3 are our second biggest TV company in New Zealand, so they've got a massive audience. They decided they were just going to stay with me for the afternoon. They were going to come along, they were going to expose me as a fraud. And so the crew that they sent down, one guy was from, it's like family farming show. And the other lady was their really hard-nosed Rottweiler interviewer that exposes frauds and charlatans and people that are charging too much for DIY jobs, you know. Anyway, they stayed with me through Monday, and then she said, do you mind if we stay with you tomorrow as well? They extended their flights and they rolled it over for another day. Yeah, sure. And they met my family, and they talked to me some more, and they talked to some of my clients. And at the end of Tuesday, they said, could we stay with you another day? And I said, yeah, sure. And they found I was doing an event in Auckland on the Thursday. They said, well, can we stay with you, and we'll film one of your live events as well. So they were with me for 4.5 days. And at the end of that 4.5 days, they were working for a TV program called 2020, which is like a watchdog, consumer watchdog program. And they said, right, we've got all we need now, and it'll be going to air on Sunday night. And I said, oh, could you tell me what you're putting out? And they said, no, we never tell anybody. But the head of TV3 will be flying down to offer you your own primetime series direct to air. Now, the
Oh,
head of
wow.
TV3 never flies anywhere. Even television producers don't even dare say hello to him in the lift. He never flies to see anybody, and I got offered the TV deal. Now, what I didn't know was how TV3 came to know about me and my book. And there was a lady working at the publishers called Alessandra that sent TV3 my book completely unsolicited. She just stuck it in the mail to them. But where it gets really interesting is how come, Alessandra. So what happened was sorry, I've got the wrong question there. What the interesting question was how come that publisher ever approached me? It was the Thursday before Good Friday. It was pouring with rain, and as Alessandra left the publishing office, a piece of paper blew up and stuck to her legs. And it was pouring. She got an umbrella. She was dashing to the car. So she just moved her legs to kick off the piece of paper. It wouldn't budge. So she reached down to pick up the piece of paper, and on it was my name and phone number. And she'd just come out of a meeting with the two directors of the publishing company where they'd asked everybody, do you know anybody in the mind, body, spirit genre who could write us a book? And Alessandra was married to the man that worked in the council, the New Plymouth Council. And about a year previously, I'd hired a room from him, and he'd offered Alessandra's services to be at my event to serve the teas and coffees. So she'd served the teas and coffees at an event a year before. The
Oh,
rain,
wow.
it's like, well, if that isn't orchestrated,
Yeah, I
it
don't believe in coincidence at all.
just mind blowing. And then what happens? It gets even more bizarre. So what then happens is TV3 make a TV series, 10 episodes with me, and it goes amazingly well, incredibly well. I don't put a foot wrong. TV1, the competition, decide they're going to expose me as a fraud and sink this project before it gets off the ground. So they invite me into their TV studios in Avalon, and they want me to take live calls on the phone to see if I'm any good as a medium. Well, it is so amazing. The message that I got was a gentleman that had died. He died on a plane. That's pretty rare. That's very specific. And the airline had lost the body. This is true, absolutely true. I saw all these people stood, at the graveside waiting for this man. He was a Maori leader, an elder, very respected. He was due to be at some kind of presentation on one of the maraes, which was what I was seeing clairvoyantly, and he never arrived. He died on board the plane. The plane didn't crash. It was just him that died. And then the airline lost his body for several hours. How you lose a body, I don't know. Well, the bit I've not told you is that because TV1 were really keen to get me in and destroy me before, they squeezed me in the only slot they got available, which was straight after the closing ceremony of the Olympics.
Oh,
They have
wow.
got record viewers watching me I blew it out the water because Spirit just gave me such wonderful proof. It melted their switchboard. Their switchboard was taken down for a day and a half because everybody was ringing in trying to talk to me. And of course, it launched my TV3 series.
Wow.
And
I
it's
find
like,
it, oh, go
I
ahead.
just show up. I just show up. I
Yeah.
smile. I just show up, you
I
know?
just say yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always find it fascinating how many people want to like prove that it's fraud or prove that, I don't know. I just think, why? Why do you care? If it's not your thing, it's not your thing, but why do you have to prove it's a fraud? I don't understand that.
They're in pain. They're always people in pain. They're never
Yeah.
happy souls.
Yeah, that's fair. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then,
usually disappointed in life but I consider myself, I am the skeptic's medium and I am the skeptic's healer because, you know, the job of a medium is to give proof. That's the job of a medium. If you're going to be a medium, you are there to give proof. You can't just give the warm, fuzzy messages. You've got to actually give the proof. That's part of the job.
yeah.
Um, but, you know, I think it was St. Ignatius that said, to those that believe, no proof is necessary. To those that don't believe, no proof is possible. And so
Yeah.
I present the proof, but it's not my job to prove it to somebody. That would be ego and that would get in the way.
Well, that would be convincing, and that's a different thing.
A whole different thing, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. So, is your TV show still running?
No, but people can view some episodes of it. So it's 10 episodes, and with my first book, Medium Rare, I'm putting out the first two episodes. When you buy the book, you get the first two episodes to watch.
Oh, cool. Well,
Yeah.
that leads us right into I would love to hear more about your books. This is fascinating. I love this. I don't I mean I do some things. I'm definitely in this wheelhouse, but I am not the person who was born into it and like I think it was always there for me. I just was like shut it down, shut it down, shut it down
Yeah, a lot of
until
people do. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Because if the
And
world around us doesn't honor it, doesn't recognize it, we do shut it down.
And I think for me, I think I needed teachers to put some of that fear at ease. Like that's how I figured out how to not be fearful. And all that really was just knowing and remembering what it was and how to do it, how to work with it, right? How to just be it, really. How to
It's so
open.
natural. That's the
Yeah.
thing. It's so natural. It's almost like it's like leaning back into a warm bath of water. You know, it's yeah, and you know they've created so much fear around it.
Yes.
You know, and you know every indigenous tribe on the planet, they speak to their ancestors. It's the most natural thing to do. We all do it naturally, don't we? You
Yeah.
know, we want to check mum or dad or grandma or uncle's okay, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I had a question. I totally forgot. I forgot what my question was. I just dropped into discovering and uncovering. Oh, yeah, yeah, books. Books. Thank you. You know. I just was into the space of like, people if you are drawn to this or if you are open to it or if you're curious about it and there's something in you that's saying, "Oh my goodness, what might this be? I feel like there might be something here for me." Just know that not all the stories you hear are true and accurate. The fear stuff, it's like, I don't know. I don't think it had I was super fearful. So are any of your books about that? Or any of your books about like reducing fear and leaning into that which is spirit?
Yes, you know, earlier I said I didn't have any doubt of what I had experienced, but there was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of, you know, um, times where I did experience fear. And quite early on in my journey, I had a full-blown possession
Mm,
because I needed to know what that was like. And I also needed to know how to deal with that and how to handle it. And I tell the story of that in the book. So my first book, Medium Rare, really is for somebody that wants to know more and wants to understand what a spiritual journey might be like. I get tremendous feedback on it from men and women saying so much of the little things that I mention in the book. It's like, oh yeah, that's happened to me, and oh yeah, that's happened to me, and it really builds people's confidence. You know that they're not imagining things. We do need to know what's imagination and what's spirit. And I was very fortunate in that I was very left brain and I didn't have much of an imagination at all. If you told me to imagine a red rose, I'd really struggle with that. Now I can do it really, really well, but back then I couldn't. I didn't have much of an imagination. Now, that in itself is something where we as a species are going wrong. We should be encouraging children with their imagination because it's our creativity and it's our contribution. We need to imagine. Whenever I'm giving birth to a new book, I've got to imagine it first. You know, a new business project, I've got to imagine it's possible first. And and so the book really is just like it's a chronological list of what I went through, but the insights I had along the way. And so I think it takes the reader on a journey of realizing things about the nature of this reality. And, you know, who wrote the Bible? You know, how do we know it's not being tampered with? There's lots of really good stuff in the Bible, and then there's stuff that contradicts itself. You know, I believe that I can find the greatest truth within me. I can read a passage and I can feel to what extent it resonates with me, whether it's a religious text, you know, and I've looked at different religions, Hinduism, um, Buddhism, Jewish faith. I've looked at different things along my journey, and you can sort of feel, well, that resonates with me and that doesn't. You know, I take a phrase like an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. That sounds really, really aggressive. And as a younger person, I would have, no, that's not right. God wouldn't be like that. God's got to be loving. Look at this universe. God has to be loving and giving. Of course, God's loving and giving. But I think what was meant by that was that it's like an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Is we don't need to worry when somebody does us something wrong about getting revenge because that higher power takes care of things.
I
And
know
that's
it's
the
like
way
karma.
I choose to interpret that, and it fits very well with me because I believe it is a loving God, but it's not a loving God that wants us to sit on our bums and be lazy. It's a loving God that wants us to grow. Like we want to see our children grow. We want our children to have roots and wings. And so we're in this experience where it doesn't all go well. It's not supposed to all go well. If it all went well, we'd never learn anything. There's going to be ups and downs. And one of the biggest things I've learnt, Michelle, is about having a community of people around
Mhm.
you that think the same way, on the same path. Not to brainwash us all, but you know, for that support. You know, so one of the things I'm really good at doing is when people come on training workshops with me is linking them up so that they can continue to support each other on the journey and so that we find like-minded souls.
Yeah. Yeah, and even like-minded souls, like we're all unique. So they still offer new perspectives
Yeah,
and ways to learn. I like what you said about it's not like we're all brainwashing each other. It's like, nah, I think that would be, I mean, I think that can be intentional and it can happen. But
yeah.
I also think that we're all so unique that when we have conversations with people who are like enough to engage and take it somewhere, that can be really powerful and such a beautiful way to connect, but then also learn and grow. Like your perspective and my perspective might be just a smidgy different, but then
Mm,
what common ground can we find within that to then learn that they both might be true? You know, and I love
absolutely.
that. Yeah. I love
Absolutely.
that.
And then it's like the circles are overlapping and we're learning from each other. And that's what we're supposed to do. That's how we're supposed to grow. I mean, it's not so long ago that if you wanted to learn a skill, you would apprentice to a master,
Hmm.
whether music or art or carpentry. And then we've sort of gone down this accreditation path of writing standards and competencies, and we've lost the essence of what it would be like, you know, to compose music alongside Beethoven or work alongside Michelangelo, you know, we've lost that. And I get lots of requests, will I do my stuff online? And I resist it because I know people will get so much more if they're in my field and in the field of the spirit surgeons, you know. And you know, we're doing a lot of stuff online now. I think since COVID, everybody's sort of withdrawn a little bit into their shells. And one of the things that really amazed me was 2 years ago when I did my UK tour 2 years ago, how hard it was to get myself back out there.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is this, you know? And if it's affecting me as a confident person, I think there's some people that are still not going out and mixing like they used to.
Yeah, we've noticed that too. I've had a lot of conversations about that with just a couple really close people, and it's fascinating where it's like, I think people don't want to go out of their house anymore. I think we got a little
Yeah,
too comfy at home.
Yeah.
And I'm
And
not
when I
poo-pooing the virtual space. It's offered a lot of like you and I wouldn't be able to have this conversation if it didn't exist. So
absolutely,
I understand that there are benefits to it and I'm not all in person or all online. However, I do feel like there's just something about getting people in person these days or inviting them in person. And even myself sometimes it's like, but I could just stay home.
you do,
And it's
yeah.
like, but
It's
why?
easier. Yeah. Yeah, no
Yeah.
travel, less cost. So I do work online, but the bigger events, the weekends, I like
Yeah.
to do those in person.
I
And
think it's
I
beautiful to
put
have
myself
both.
out for that as well. But I
Yes.
know, that's my truth. It's about us living our truth, isn't it? And I
Yeah.
know that I need to be in an environment where the energy is good. Makes it easier on me, especially when I give so much. But it means that the students have a better result because in that sacred energy, it's so much easier to get clarity for themselves, so much easier to tune into the spirit guides, and it builds their confidence. And then with that confidence, they can go back into their workspace, be more mindful of how the energy is in their home and in their workspace, and start, impacting people in a much more powerful and professional way.
I love what you said about, I mean, I guess I'll just simplify it to mentorship, but I just think living traditions are my jam. Learning from the teacher who learned from their teacher who learned from their teacher
Yeah,
who learned from their teacher. And often the teachers were ancestors, right? Not always, but often. And I just find it, one of my teachers, he would always say, God has no certificate, no need certificate, need wisdom, need knowledge, need power, and all those words were said in maybe different definitions than our logical brain puts them in. But I just find it so powerful when we can learn from each other without worrying about checking all the boxes. And it's like on any given day, the boxes move. They change. They change.
absolutely,
And so if you
absolutely.
don't have that foundation, but you only know what to do in this specific instance with this specific line of boxes, like that's great. But like, what are the chances that that perfect alchemy is going to come in front of you again? Probably not very much. So I love what you said about community and about, what I heard living traditions and mentorship and really connection in a way that is so much more about the practice itself than it is
Absolutely.
about being able to take a test and pass it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it fits very, very much with intention as well. In NLP, one of the phrases that is used a lot is you maintain your intention, but not your position. So when I run a
Mm,
2-day workshop, I've got an intention of what I'm going to convey and the environment I'm going to create and the outcomes for the students. But how I get there, I could take a million different routes based on, what's happening within the group. You know, if somebody in the group has had a bereavement, we've had that recently where somebody had arrived and she came on the workshop and the dad had died the day before. You've got to
oh,
handle the
wow.
dynamic very, very differently, you know. And so, yeah, maintaining intention, but not maintaining our position. But we are in a world where, you know, authorities require insurance, they require certificates, so we need to do that bit. And
Sure.
and
Yes.
that's my reason for having the relationship I've got now with the Harry Edwards College in the UK because they've got a 2-year accredited healer program um, that I guide, if you like. Um, but at the same time, having got the basics, having got the certificate on the wall, having learnt what we need to learn about anatomy, physiology, what we can say to a client, where we can touch the body, where we can't touch the body, let's then be relaxed knowing that we know we're meeting the law and the legal requirements and moral and ethical standards. And now we can relax into really working with spirit and getting incredible, incredible results.
I absolutely love that you just said that because that's such an important piece. It's like we do need the logic. We do need I mean, there have to be
Yeah,
metrics. There has to be a way because
yeah,
otherwise anybody could just dangerously, right? I do think there's a
yeah,
threshold and the foundation is such an important piece, but I think sometimes we just misplace and again, we're back to ego, right? The need for a certificate or something to look an exact way
yeah.
over what if it moves? Because it does. I just find that it does. I find that nothing ever stays the same. And that's a beautiful thing. But also, it doesn't mean that you have to start over every time. like,
No, that's right. That's right. And
yeah.
I know with Harry Edwards, one of the things I really love about their training is that they can accredit your prior learning. So if you've already worked as a healer for a length of time, that can be factored in against, the standards and the competency units, so that you don't have to go through 2 years. You can tick the boxes much faster and then move into the more the kind of work that I do.
So do you, I like, I'm trying to ask, is your focus more working with healers to develop their
50-50.
practice? Okay.
I'm 50-50. So I am working with the public, and I keep my rates very affordable. I would say just about every day somebody will say, I didn't think I'd be able to afford you, and I'm amazed that you're not charging more. Um, so I'm working for the public, and I'm going to do my utmost to keep my rates as they are for the foreseeable future. Um, I do need to take on an assistant, and that might impact the financial side of things. I'm realizing I want to get myself out more, and I've got to hand over a lot of the other stuff that happens behind the scenes. And that's something that, so when I work with healers, I'm not just helping them with their healing, but I'm helping them understand how they can be successful in that world as well. What
Mhm.
you can say legally, what you can put in adverts, how do you use social media. I'm a former bank manager, so I know all about the financial side of things. How do you sharpen the saw, identifying, where is it you're weak, where is it you need to focus, because not all healers are good at promoting themselves. There's a whole tranche of people that have got healing abilities that are still doing it as a part-time job, in their
Mhm.
spare time, out of love for their fellow man. But imagine how much more benefit they could do. And this brings me on to something that I do want to talk about, Michelle, if we've got time, which is sometimes people say you shouldn't charge for healing. And I get accused, you should not charge for healing. And the first thing I want to say is that Harry Edwards, his view was we shouldn't charge for healing. But Harry Edwards didn't need an income. I've got to pay bills, I've got expenses, I need to run a car, I need a home. Um, so I cover my overheads, I charge to cover my overheads. If I didn't charge for healing, I would still be a bank manager.
Yeah.
And Connor, that's just one example, would still be in a wheelchair. And several clients I've got, would more than that will be dead because, so I know absolutely that I've done what I needed to do. And so I half of my time roughly is doing the live events, and I do a lot of work on Zoom calls because they're spiritual beings. You don't need to be with me in person. But it's great to come to the live event because then you've got a group of people in the room that are all excited to witness the healing. It's phenomenal. And then half of my time is helping healers build their confidence, step forward, become more financially successful. You know, we've why is it of all the professions that healing is the one you shouldn't charge for? We can be artists, musicians. Nobody says, oh, you shouldn't charge. But healing, they say you shouldn't charge. Your intention needs to be not about the money. I'm very clear. I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it to help the person, 100%. I give everybody my very best attention. I'm very present. I don't let my mind wander. I am just that conduit for spirit and for the good healing energy that this person needs. The money doesn't enter my head, but people do pay me for the healing. They pay me for my time rather than the healing. That's how I describe it. Yeah, if you want half an hour of my time, that's what it costs you. What we do with that time is up to you.
Yeah. I think that's a slippery slope when people go down the road of like, well, healers shouldn't charge. I mean, it's like there's plenty of things in this world that people need or they will die that people charge for. It's like that's the world we live in. That's where
It's the
we've
world we live
landed.
in.
That's the world
Yeah,
we've landed in where there's an exchange and this energy exchange that happens to be currency so that we can money so that we can continue to do what we do is the exchange. And um I think if you break it down hourly, it's pretty interesting, right? But I think that's true for a lot of professions. I think there's a lot of people, professions, passions, whatever you want to call it. I think there's a lot of people who put a lot more hours than their paycheck, hourly paycheck into what they
absolutely.
do. And it's not about nickel and diming people. It's just more about, well, this happens to be my full-time job. That's how the
Mm.
world works. But I'm also not looking to be greedy or ego driven through greed, right? This is I don't know. I think that's a whole nother conversation. We could record a whole nother podcast about that sort of thing. And I think it's easy to throw judgments out there when you've never been in the shoes as well. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah,
I think,
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know, yeah.
Yeah. I
So
know for sure if I was still a bank manager, that would have been a huge mistake.
yeah. And it served its purpose, right? Like it did something for
Yeah,
you until it didn't. And then you
exactly.
moved on. And I
Part
don't
of
I
my
don't think it's
training.
always possible to move on. I think sometimes we're meant to be in a place that we don't necessarily want to be for a little while longer because there's more for us to do there, whether we like it or not. I think that sometimes is our truth. So I don't have
Absolutely.
this like skewed view that like life is always supposed to be great and we're supposed to love absolutely every moment of everything we do and that our profession has to be our passion. Like I'm not that person. I think there's a lot of different ways our lives can look and it's a journey. But I also think if we can show up in compassion and out of our ego more often than we're in it, it would be a lovely thing. But I also know we need our egos. So I
Yeah,
wanted to
you've got an
circle.
ego for a reason. You've got an
Yeah,
ego for a
exactly.
reason. Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah.
So you mentioned your first book and you said, I think you said you had three more. Are they
That's
all
right.
on mediumship?
Uh, n- let's have a look. We've got, so the first one's medium rare. That's about going from bank manager to realizing I'm a medium, talking to granddad, grandma, and all the rest of it. Then it's rare moments, which is what it's like to be a medium. Then my
Mm,
third book is called Dare to Believe, and that is about, it's almost like a workbook. So it's taking you on a journey of exploring your beliefs. So I'm applying NLP to mediumship and spirit communication and talking to guides. Really
okay.
powerful book. That's out of print at the moment, but I'm hoping to have some of those back in stock soon. And then the fourth book is called Backstage with Jeanette, and that's all about grief and the bereavement process. Um, and it includes Kubler-Ross's stages of grief and how we don't just go through them in sequence. Everybody's on a different journey, and to just allow yourself to be where you are. And it includes really, really tragic stories that I got involved with that had in some way a happy ending. Unbelievable, how out of every dark area some light comes, some amazing, amazing stories, and also what it's been like for me looking for bodies, because as a medium, I have been invited to help find bodies, and I have been successfully found too, which
Oh, wow.
I'm more than happy with. Um, Not work I like doing, because usually it's a spirit that hasn't moved over properly, and it's very hard on my system having them in my space while we locate the body, but it is possible if there's a body to be found. And then more recently, I've put out an ebook just at the beginning of this year, actually. It's called A Little Light on Self Healing. I realized that healing doesn't just take place when we're with the healer, it takes place in the spaces in between, and people needed something to support them on that journey. And
Hmm.
that little ebook, it takes you about an hour to read. It's very affordable. It's called A Little Light on Self Healing. People will find it on my website, JeanetteWilson.com. All my books are on my website. Um, but I'm getting wonderful, wonderful feedback on that. So I'm actually going to expand that into a physical book as well at some stage during this year.
That's
My
amazing.
intention, I'm intention.
I love it. Manifestation through intention.
Absolutely. I didn't know I
Um,
was writing that book. I thought I was writing one working with the spirit doctors, as like a manual for my students. And I thought, well, I'll just get that one out the way first. And it was 27,000 words later, I realized, oh, I really have a lot to share about that. And the feedback has just been phenomenal. So that's going to expand to about 60,000 words, I would say. And then I'll work on the working with the spirit doctors.
that's awesome. Well, you let us right into, I wanted to make sure everybody knows how to find you and where to find you. It sounds like everything is accessible on your website, which is
My
awesome.
website, yeah,
And then
JeanetteWilson.com. Yeah.
okay, I'll put that in the show notes as well. And then we can put your social media channels if you have those as well. We can put
Yeah,
those in the
awesome.
show
That'd be
notes.
great. Yeah, I've got a great
Yeah.
YouTube channel with lots of videos that are really cool.
Amazing. Well, I have really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like, is there anything else that you want to, maybe that we only touched on but didn't really get it out there? Is there anything else that you want to share before we wrap up this podcast?
One last thought that I'd like to leave your listeners with, because I've been in this place myself, particularly through the last 5 years, the COVID era, is we do all this spiritual work and we meditate and we get ourselves well and we do the inner work, and then we get distracted by the outer world and what's happening and trying to discern what is true. And really it can be it's a strange time, isn't it? But I think the outcome we're moving to is that we're going to use that spiritual insight to affect the physical.
Mm.
And I would say to anybody, don't be concerned at what you're seeing happening on a physical level. The old way has to collapse. It might look like it's getting worse, but it's not getting worse. It's just being exposed to the light. And as more and more people see what has been happening in our world, because I think most people have trusted their governments, they've trusted people in power, they trusted the drug companies to make good drugs, and as it all gets exposed, don't despair, just keep on with your spiritual practice, and let yourself find your particular niche that you are really, really passionate about, that you can spend hours doing and like it's no time. Just find your niche and stay in your lane. And the reason I'm saying this is 2 years ago I stood for local politics and it was like I was not in my lane.
Mm.
I could do it. I was the best known person in the community. I was a voice, but I wasn't in my lane, and that's not my path. And I had to learn that. Even, I've been on my spiritual journey 30 years now, but still, my ego thought, oh yeah, I can make a difference here. And it's like, no, no, no. Stay in your lane, people, and it will all unfold in accordance with divine plan.
That's such a beautiful way to say it. I often speak about finding our strengths and really leaning into those. And why are we seeking outside of those? Because our ego is in the way, telling us we can make a difference in a different way when really our way is
Yeah.
our strength. So I
Your
love the way
way
you
is your
said
strengths,
that.
absolutely.
Yeah, I
The whole
really love the way you said
education
that.
system's wrong because
Yeah,
it,
your
it wanted
truth.
all rounders. No. Let me use a little example. 30 kids in a school, and you make them all good all rounders. You make them all do maths, so they all do sports, they all do English, they all do languages. And some are good at some and some are not good at others. Now you take 30 kids and you let the people that are engineers be engineers, you let the people that are designers be designers, you let the artists, you let the singers. What a different culture we would have. We'd have people that excel in all areas. And so you're exactly right. Play to your strengths. Do what comes naturally. Be
Yeah,
honest with yourself if you know there's something that's holding you back, like a confidence thing or public speaking or going on social media. A lot of people have got to push past that barrier. Be
that's
honest
another
with
beautiful
yourself,
point.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but play to your strengths. It's spot on, Michelle.
And be honest with yourself if you're blocking yourself.
Yeah,
You know,
and
if
if
you,
you're
yeah.
really no good on social media yourself, get somebody who is. You do what you do, get them to do what they're good at doing.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
It takes more than one.
Takes more than one. This is a year, I reckon, of collaboration. That's my theme for this year is collaboration, collaborating with other
That's
people,
amazing.
so that we all thrive.
Yeah. I love that intention. That feels like such a lovely place to wrap up. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I've so much enjoyed this conversation, and I
My
look
pleasure.
forward to the next time.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. I look forward to it too.